What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Steelhead Alley podcast. I'm Kyle, and I'm here with my good buddy and co-host Zach, and we couldn't be more excited to finally get this thing started. We kick off the podcast by sharing our journeys from spinning rods to fly rods, following our passion for trout, and the path that ultimately brought us to chasing steelhead on the Lake Erie tributaries. At the end of the day, we're just two fishy guys who love being on the water and talking about it when we're not. This podcast has been a long time coming, and we're looking forward to sharing stories, tactics, and plenty of laughs with you along the way. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on this journey. Now, let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Steelhead Alley podcast. Zach, what's up, man? Let's get it going.
Yeah, man. Long time coming.
Yes, I agree. We've been working on this idea. I've been thinking about it for a while. Zach jumped on board a few months ago, and we're getting it going. So me and Zach, real quick, we've been fishing together for a long time. We kind of have a small group. We have a third party, and we just think about water differently, think about fishing a little bit differently than most of our friends. And so, you know, we're here to just kind of talk about our time on the water and how we look at water. And so, Zach, get us started, man. Tell us about yourself.
Like I said, my name's Zack Vanderslice. So essentially, I think it's imperative to talk about like our journey into fly fishing, which is ultimately what this is. It's our opinions on certain things. It's our outlook on certain things. And I think how you get there, or how we got to where we are now, it's good to look back at how we formulated these opinions or how we formulated these tactics or our outlook on fishing in general.
For sure.
So me, fishing in general started for me like anybody else. It's spin fishing at a local pond, and then it started going with my dad and my pap, trout fishing on local stock streams. I didn't know what a wild stream was till I started fly fishing. It was just, you went to stock waters on the first day of trout. You maybe fished 3-4 days after that the rest of the year, and trout season didn't come around again until April. And it wasn't thought about. Yep, follow the truck. It wasn't thought about till after that.
That's right. So
I guess, for years I was a spinner fisherman and strictly spinner fisherman. And that's kind of where I learned how to read water. I kind of got, set off on my own once I hit about 10, 11. Like, here, I'll send you downstream. I'm going upstream. We're going to meet in the middle and see how you do. And I kind of learned trial by fire for a while. And then eventually I went with my stepdad after he outfished me every single time, and I didn't know why. And I followed him and watched him pick apart water with a spinner, watched him, flipping a spinner underneath undercuts and really fishing a root or, just watching different tactics. And that's where I learned how to read water. And then after that, we were all big night crawler fishermen, dead drifting night crawlers, which is kind of funny because that kind of leads right into fly fishing, right? So you're dead drifting night crawlers and live bait. And then I got a fly rod for my birthday one year. I asked for one and I kind of fly fished and my spinning rod. I brought them both with me all the time. And then gradually I just kind of kicked the spinning rod out and it was all fly fishing, and it's been that way ever since.
That's the key moment right there.
Yeah. It was like,
when you finally leave the spinner at home.
Yeah, when that was like my safety net, you know what I mean? The fly rod is what we started with, and then if there was no luck, I was like, I know I can catch him on a worm.
That's right.
And then if the fly rod became my safety net, and I didn't want to spin fish anymore. Again, nothing against it. It just kind of fell out of love with that and in love with fly fishing, and that's where...
Especially for trout.
Exactly, especially for trout.
Yeah.
And now I can't think about doing it any other way.
I'm with you, man. And to piggyback on a lot of that, so similar background, I'll just kind of fast forward it, fishing, camping, regardless of what type of fish it was, lakes, streams. Eventually into high school, we started always stock truck chasing and catching and keeping. We always cooked them, everyone was cooking them. And that was part of the fun, I think that association, especially for stocked fish as a kid in high school, that evolves your enjoyment for it. We love doing it that way. And then, I don't know how long I've been fly fishing now, not quite as long as you, but let's say 10 years or whatever. When we were on that worm, stringing minnows, running crawlers or red worms, we were doing that together, like destroying fish. We would catch a lot of fish. And you're right, without drifting a worm, without spinning that way, it expedited the learning curve for fly fishing. When you can read water, you can learn how to fly fish way quicker in terms of the real nuance. Yes, exactly. Where the fish are, where the trout are feeding, and then you get deeper into the seasons and where they're going to be, depending on that and conditions and all that. It's weird learning how to fly fish when you don't have someone who knows how to fly fish with you directly. Like it's harder. So then when I went to Montana just for fun and flew and floated. Honestly, it was the first trout I ever caught on a fly rod was in Montana, but I was with guys for fun who had a drift boat and expedited my learning curve by exponentially. But without reading water, it still would have been tough to and slowed that learning curve down. And then like you said, once you finally leave the spinning rod home, that's the key. And I'm with you. I'm the same way, but I haven't touched a spinning rod other than if we're like on, smallie fishing or something. And
Yeah.
even that, I've gone with the fly.
I'll still, like, when I fish with my dad, he's still only spinning. And I'll watch him fish something that I know and he won't catch nothing. And I'll be like, I know there's one in there. I'll be like, give me that. And I'll snatch it. I'll flip a spinner under a root once or twice. And it's not that it's not fun. It's just not my cup of tea anymore. It's still fun to do.
I think, and kind of in relation to why we're doing this podcast and the in-depth of how we have just our normal conversations of when we either fish together or one of us is going fishing and we're kind of talking about that, the nuance and like the challenge of fly fishing. We were catching a lot of fish on the spinning rod. It was, for lack of better words, it was easy. We would go to creeks and we knew we were going to do well. And but then you do get to a point where if conditions aren't the way we wanted them, we didn't go fishing. We're like, we're not going to catch fish. So I think you feel like you top out, and then the fly rod kind of brings a whole nother game where you're like catching fish on every level now. And very top 6 inches, bottom column, right off the bottom, whatever it is. And so once you get a taste of the versatility of the fly rod and how you're basically prepared for almost every scenario, especially for trout fishing and for fishy people like us we love catching trout. I mean, there is not much better than catching a trout, and especially a wild one. And then, like you said, we didn't even chase wild ones. Dock trout to the wild trout is a transition, is a stepping stone as well that I think probably most fly fishers go through because, again, it's a challenge thing. There's also if you live anywhere in Pennsylvania, New York, whatever it is around here, the wild fish and the natives are just they're special from a visual standpoint, and I honestly like it because I like the idea of tricking something that lives in the wild with a piece of feather and fur, and it's pretty awesome. So yeah, man. The other cool thing is like the evolution of our setups. Right? 9'5" weight. Is that where you started?
Yep, 9'5" weight. Triumph.
There you go, Triumph. Love it. I remember. Did you?
And I broke it along with the next 4 or 5 fly rods that I had.
We'll get down to some of those stories, I'm sure, at some point. But hint, Zach was notorious. You've been good for a while now. Was notorious for breaking rods. Usually,
Yeah,
I'd say 50-50 accidental, too. Like, a lot of times you were just fishing.
Yeah. I have a hook set like a shark. That's a problem.
Yeah, you do. Works on the Steelhead.
Yeah.
Because they just stop you halfway. So
Yeah.
What do you think? Setup. I feel like most fishing buddies have similar setups. Not all the time, but me and you fish similarly. Similar leader design with tweaks. So what's your evolution? Where are you at now?
So my evolution, when I thought about this the other day about where I started, and then the progression was all over the place. So it was like, again, 9'5" weight, Triumph rod, whatever fly line came on it, I don't know. And I literally I didn't know what tip it was. I didn't know what leaders were. I didn't know what the difference between mono. Like, I barely knew any of these things. I just knew I needed to attach fishing line to the end of this big, thick, plastic-looking line. Yeah. So I literally tied like a perfection loop in the fly line and then tied a fisherman's knot onto that of just like regular strand, like mono.
I mean, that's not bad.
No, it's not. But thinking about it now, and the first time I went, I dry fly fished a lot. Again, I didn't know nymphs were like, fishing below the water wasn't really part of the game for me. It was like, when you're fly fishing, you're just fishing on top. Like, you see movies, you see people doing it. you're seeing big long casts, big roll cat, So started out there, and then the rod, I kept getting it like stuck in trees and stuff. And so I was like, maybe I need a smaller one. So I ended up buying a St. Croix, like an 8-footer, because I was like, I wanted something that felt more similar to an ultralight trout rod. So I was like, I need a smaller one because I'm tired of getting snagged in trees and stuff. So that was short-lived, and the setup stayed the same really up until I started bobber fishing a little bit. I started indicator nymphing a little bit, and that was very, very short-lived. And then I don't remember, I think the first time I saw anybody tightlining anything, I probably just YouTubed it. I don't know where it popped up somewhere, and I was watching it, and like you said, it reminded me of Dead Drift Nightcrawler. So I'm like, I like that. So I went with, honestly, dude, if I had to think about what my janky setup was back then, I couldn't even tell you. But I had a tight line set up. I bought the pre-made indicators, or the cider line indicators from Lively Legs.
I remember you used to rock those.
I ran those a lot. The gold medium creek ones were my go-to. So I just ran fly line to like a little tiny piece of 25 pound. I ran that leader off of it, and that's how I tight line for a while. And then after that is when I looked into the finer points of tight line nymphing.
Were you using split shot?
I used a lot of split shot.
Okay.
A lot of split shot because...
Well, that's good. I was just curious because I feel that's something I did not get into, was on the nymphing extension of split shot as well. So you were using, that makes sense.
Yeah, I used a lot of split shot because at that point too, I hadn't really, I tied a little bit, but not a lot. I was still buying a lot of flies, so I couldn't make up for the weight getting down deeper with heavier beads. I didn't have a whole box of 4mm beads, or so I used a ton of weight.
Another evolution of fly fishing, right?
It worked.
Yeah, of course.
Now I'm still very, very minimalist. Right now I have straight 30-pound amnesia, a whole spool of it on my reel, right to a cider line, right to the tippet. I don't get involved in a lot of other nuances. I keep it simple.
And you've kept it simple since you've gone away from the gold Lively leaders.
Yeah.
So you've been rocking the full... Wait, do you do OPST?
I did OPST
you
for
don't anymore?
Probably 3 years. Well, it's hard to find now. It's hard for me to find anywhere.
You can get it online,
out of stock.
And they don't have 25-pound anymore. But yeah.
When I was running OPST, it's a whole, just whatever was on the spool, the 100 whatever yards, right to the cider line, right to the tippet. And that's what I do now, except for it's amnesia.
One tippet ring?
One tippet ring.
Blood knots? Or are you just doing clinch? Or surgeons? So I guess, what's your cider connected to your leader?
That's triple surgeons.
Okay.
And one triple surgeon's not at the top, cider, tippet ring, tippet, flies.
Yeah. Okay. Always 2 flies. Usually 2 flies.
Yeah. I've been getting into more single fly stuff. We can get into that, but pretty much always 2 flies. I know your progression's about the same, but your setup's a little different.
Mine's more in depth. So 2 things. One, what do you do and you've been running no fly line for those setups for a few years now. Do you flip spools or flip reels if you want to throw a dry fly?
Yeah, if I'm throwing dries, I will. But anything else, I just run off of that setup. I'll run dry dropper off of that tight line setup.
Okay.
But if I just want to run a single dry fly, I'll switch it over. But I can run anything else, dry dropper, streamers. Everything else is just changing out the tippet side or getting the cider off there if I'm running dry dropper or something. And sometimes I won't even do that. So I try to keep it very versatile on the water. So I want to make as little changes as possible to, get back out there and adapt to whatever I'm seeing or whatever I'm experiencing.
What size, I know what this is, but what rod are you using?
It's a 10-foot 4-weight, Douglas Sky.
Why the 4? Why the 10-foot? And why have you continued to use that? We've changed so many other things. That's one thing that hasn't changed for a while.
I think it's just it's a good in the middle. I got the length to be able to Euro nymph. I like the feel of a little bit more backbone up from a 2-weight or a 3-weight. So I feel like I can do a little more.
I agree.
And I think it's overall a little more versatile. The 4 originally happened because I wanted a 3. They didn't have the 3, or the 4 was on sale. And so I got the 4. And ultimately, it was a great outcome because I I love the 4-weight and the versatility of it. Again, I can catch 7-inch native brookies on it, and as you've seen, I can catch steelhead on it as well with, pretty much no problem.
Yes, sir. I agree. I like the 4-weights. I like the 10-foot 4-weight. The interesting thing is your learning of fly fishing was slightly different than mine because when I was learning, I was away from you guys. You guys have been living in the same, I say you guys, me and our other buddy, in Central PA area. And then I was, Philly area and kind of in that for a while. And so I dug a lot more into trying to go video and reading and things like that. But honestly, that's still tough. But as you're digging into that reading, we've discovered like a trout bitten or, early readings on like Humphreys. He's doing these mono-style rigs or these heavy nymphing rigs. And then you kind of stumble upon this idea of tightline nymphing and, oh, hey, this is what competitive fly fishers do or variances of this in terms of Euro nymphing. And then you start hearing all these different terms, Czech, Euro, all this stuff. And it almost gets too complicated, but it's kind of cool at the sense that if you break it down, all those different terms are just people adjusting that same idea, the same formula, which is exactly what we're doing. So you could give your leader a name and it's, slightly different techniques with those leaders. Man, I'm trying to think. I didn't even know what an indicator was for a minute. I did, and then I didn't. And then it was all about, same like you, dry fly, like, well, this is what dry fly fishing is. So I'm trying to throw a pre-made leader with a perfection loop. So that made it easier. You hook that on there. But
I feel like you did it smarter, Kyle. Like I wasn't big on doing any research. I was just like, oh, fly fishing, this is what it is. And I just kind of went and bought pre-made flies. You actually knew that there was supposed to be a pre-made leader for the thing. And so because you just researched more than I did. You know what I mean? Which was smart.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I was on the water a lot learning, but I just think I felt like I had no choice. But it was indicator fishing. And then you know what? I started going steelhead fishing while I was only a couple years into fly fishing. So learning multiple techniques and I was doing a lot more indicator fishing up there. And then that evolved into, going down the mono rig from trout bitten and things like that. And I feel like you were the one that told me about it. I know you told me about lively legs first. So, that going down different paths until you finally start tying. And then my leader design started going from indicators and then when I was trout fishing, I was dropping the indicator and just kind of tight lining and just like the end of the fly line. And when that twitched, that would be my indication. And then sometimes I'd put an indicator back on, but I never really enjoyed the indicator. And I don't remember how we all started tight lining. It might have been like George Daniel's Euro nymphing book. I don't know, because remember he took second in the worlds and it just started blowing up and everyone's like, hey, you catch a lot more fish this way. So then you start digging deeper. And so then once I found OPST, I haven't gotten off of it, and I really like OPST. I'm sure there's other great things, and I would try something else, but I always keep it on the fly line. And I like that because if I am in a pinch and I can just unbutton that leader and put something else on in terms of a natural dry fly because the fly line's still on there. But to your point, I would prefer, if I could, to tight line that dry fly anyway. To keep it drag free. And that was the other thing. Learning to go drag free with a dry fly, that was a tough concept. But drifting a worm underwater compared to drifting nymphs underwater is essentially the same thing. So that learning curve was so much easier to naturally go there. So then you start being like, oh, I'm learning faster and then I'm jumping in deeper. And then you start developing, the leader. So it's OPST and then I run, I'm like 22 to 25 feet of OPST. I think I'm on 30 pound now because I don't think you can do 25 anymore. And then I go 2 different colored pieces of green and red amnesia and like 12 to 15 inch sections, and I blood knot those. And then I go down the cider. So that's 30 pound. Those are usually like 15, 12. And then like a 9-pound cider. I've gone beefier with my ciders lately. I used to do like a 6 or 7. Then I got a bigger one for steelhead fishing, and I just like it more. So a little bit thicker. And then it's usually like 4 feet, anywhere from 3, 4, 5X, depending on what I'm doing, where I'm at, what creek I'm at. And then 2 flies and find that riffle and drift away. But once you crack that code in terms of learning how that fish are feeding underwater 90% of the time. That's a stigma that you don't learn right away when you're learning how to fly fish.
I think it's because what happened to me was the days I wasn't catching anything, I seemed to always be near a guy who was dry fly fishing that would be catching something. I was using fly fishing as a supplement to when I wasn't catching stuff under the water, I could dry fly fish.
Right.
And then you have this vision in your head of like, they're always eating up top because every time I'm not catching anything, I'm seeing them eat up top. So then, like you said, you don't learn those windows of hatches and rising fish. They're only so big.
Yep.
Whereas the feeding window underneath the water is much larger.
It was more second nature.
Mm-hmm.
It was just more natural. And then again, once you learn how to read a sighter and you combine that with reading water and figure out depth and then start tying your own flies, which we both do and have for a while now. And if you're serious about fly fishing, you can be very productive without tying flies. There's no question.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
We know that. There's plenty of great flies that you can just do well, but you look at the water differently. You approach it more nuanced when you're tying your own flies for situations that you've been in. You're adjusting the fly ties for situations you've been in or situations you're about to be in. Zach, I know you prep a lot for like, oh, the sulfurs are starting and you gear up and you'll start tweaking variations of sulfur nymphs and all that. I'm a little less specific when it comes to nymph imitations. I like a little bit more simple, a little bit more generic. But again, once you tap into that, I feel like that's just another stage where you're taking it further. And, that was a game changer.
Yeah. When you start tying your own flies and coming up with your own patterns and really starting to really hone in on the bug life and the bug activity and making those things your own, like you said, it opens up almost a whole new world, right? And it gives you more weapons in the arsenal, and it makes it more fun. It's just an added element to fly fishing that makes it more fun. Being able to construct your own lure that you sat down and made, and in the beginning took you probably 25 minutes to make one thing. And then when you finally go out and you can catch a fish on something like that, it just makes it's more rewarding. Rather than I go out and I pluck the bait out of the fridge and I put that on my hook and I go. It's just another added element, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, good way to sum it up. It is more fun. I remember the first time I caught, it was a stock brook trout, my first real own fly design, and the Christmas tree.
Christmas tree.
Yep. I used to kill it on the Christmas tree.
I may have stole that pattern, made a variation of my own.
Yeah, hey, it worked. I haven't used it in a while, but I might have to tinker with it again. But the Christmas tree, first time, and I was like, man, that was awesome. Like tricking that fish, even if it was a stocked fish on my own fly tie design. But it was awesome. I agree. Makes it more fun. And again, I feel like you kind of level up as you go through these stages, and that's just like another level up. And then and then you think about in more depth of like variations or size variations or weight variations of those same patterns and dial those in more.
Exactly.
And then it's just time on the water, right?
Nothing beats reps, man. Nothing beats reps.
Well said. Once you dial in your method, your preferences, whether that's rod, leader, whatever it is, flies, design, you just got to be out there, especially early. And that's where you really figure it out. Now we got the kids and all that, and you're a little bit ahead.
I was going to say, that was before kids, so we had the time.
Thank goodness. If it wasn't, man, I can't imagine. Again, we were out every weekend, Saturday, Sundays, multiple days in the week. Whenever possible, it was all the time, and it made a huge difference.
For sure.
Yeah, man, that's where we are today. And, every year we have a couple trips together. So we got some content in terms of video coming out. These are going to be regular for the podcast. But this is the way we like to do things. But the cool thing is everyone makes it work in the way they do it. And I think the cool thing is to continue to learn and apply it to the water, catch more fish and hopefully a bigger fish, and then brag about it to Stump.
Exactly.
Hey, just rub it in his face. All right, man. Everyone, thanks, y'all. We really appreciate it. Just getting things started, so can't wait to see the evolution of it. This is a very new thing for both of us, but
for sure,
we're excited about seeing where we are in 3 months, 6 months, a year. Can't wait to see where it goes. We appreciate it, and we look forward to the future. Thanks, everyone. This is Steelhead Ale Podcast, and we'll see you soon.